It always begins the same way. She looks at you not for who you truly are, but for who she believes you could become. You can feel it in her gaze, can't you? That spark, is it hope or hunger? You think she's truly seeing you, but she's not. She's measuring you, assessing you, scanning you like a blank canvas, waiting to be transformed into her vision. But that vision, it's not really about you. It never was. Carl Jung tried to warn us, not with comforting cliches, but with the piercing clarity of a man who spent his life exploring the hidden depths of the human mind. Jung dedicated his work to mapping the unconscious, the silent part of the psyche, operating beneath awareness. And what he found, especially when it came to women, was unsettling. He realized that women don't always fall in love with men, but with the idea of men, the fantasy, the projection, and often they aren't even aware they're doing it. You may think she's choosing you, but in truth, she's selecting a version of you she created in her imagination, a character meant to serve a role in her private narrative. And when you no longer fit that role, she won't rewrite the story. She'll simply cast someone else. Jung named this phenomenon the animus, the inner masculine figure that lives within every woman. When immature or unchecked, the animus becomes domineering, impulsive, and even destructive. It compels women to be drawn to dangerous men, to argue without purpose, to assert dominance without wisdom, and to judge without reflection. Jung didn't downplay this. He called it a form of spiritual possession, a state where a woman is no longer acting from her own awareness, but from the grip of an unconscious inner image. And men, you fall for it, because no one taught you to recognize it. You confuse being desired with being truly seen. You mistake being chosen for being understood. You believe her when she says you're different, when really you're just the newest actor in a role she's been scripting since childhood. And when that illusion crumbles, when the mask falls, you're left disoriented, heartbroken, ashamed, not because you failed, but because you stopped performing the part. Jung believed that the only way out of this psychological drama is through a process he called individuation, a journey to become whole, conscious, and truly yourself. Individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole within yourself. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most men never begin that journey. You've been conditioned to chase approval, to seek validation, to let women determine your value. And as long as that's your pattern, you'll keep playing the same role again and again, only to be replaced when the audience grows tired. Individuation isn't glamorous. It's not a highlight reel. It's brutal. It forces you to face the parts of yourself you've buried, the weak, the insecure, the wounded. It asks you to stop blaming women for not seeing you, and to finally painfully begin seeing yourself. Because here's what Jung understood, something most men will never grasp. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Your worth isn't something earned through her affection. It's forged in solitude, by standing on your own, fully awake, fully accountable, fully alive. A man who has faced his own unconscious cannot be seduced by projections. He's no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He becomes the author of his own life. Jung saw the tragedy of modern men, not that they're rejected, but that they willingly shapeshift into whatever form they believe will win acceptance. You call it compromise. You call it partnership. You even call it love. But Jung called it something else: self-betrayal. He warned that men who ignore their inner growth become slaves to feminine projections, twisting themselves like wet clay to fit the expectations of women, who often don't even understand what they truly want. You stop being men. You become masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you forget who you were before the mask. And women, they feel it, more than you know, that very thing you think will make her love you. Your obedience, your predictability, your constant availability, becomes the exact reason she loses interest. Why? Because as Jung taught, The feminine isn't drawn to comfort. It's drawn to mystery, to depth, to the man she can't fully define or control. The moment you strip yourself bare, no boundaries, no spine, no sovereignty, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, replaceable, forgettable. And yet here lies the paradox that enslaves so many men. You fear being alone more than you fear being false. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live in a performance than face the silence of standing without applause. But Jung was clear. Until a man confronts that solitude, until he embraces it, he will never truly be free. He will never be free. Jung wrote that individuation is not a path for the faint of heart, because it demands something most people will never give: to die before you die. To let all the false selves, the masks, the roles, the stories burn to ash, so that something real can finally rise. But here's the part no one wants to say out loud. Individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely. As you walk that path, you begin to see, and once you see, you can't unsee. You notice the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves to feel safe, to feel normal. And when you try to speak the truth, they mock you. They say you're cold, that you're arrogant, too serious, detached. They tell you you're the problem, but you're not the problem. You're the mirror. And people hate the mirror. When it reflects back a truth they've spent their whole lives avoiding. Jung knew this intimately. He spent decades with patients paralyzed by the fear of their own shadow, the dark, denied, unclaimed parts of their psyche. And women. Jung warned that many grow up in cultures that reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They're told they are already whole, already wise, already emotionally pure, that their intuition is infallible, that they are complete, just as they are. But Jung didn't buy it. He wrote that the greatest danger to a woman's soul was her unconscious animus, that inner masculine voice that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and false moral high ground. If a woman refuses to face and integrate this inner force, she becomes controlled by it, possessed by it. She projects it onto every man she meets, blaming him for the battle she refuses to fight within herself. And you think you're her savior. You believe you'll be the exception, that if you love her enough, prove yourself enough, if you become everything she wants, she'll finally see you, want you, choose you. But that's not how projection works. Projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. And until both men and women awaken from that illusion, they'll keep playing the same tragic play, again and again, each one blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with shadow. And here comes the most bitter irony of all. The woman who once hailed you as a hero, will one day cast you as the villain. Not because you changed, but because you couldn't sustain the fantasy she projected onto you, and she'll have no idea she's doing it. Jung called this kind of psychological betrayal inevitable, whenever neither partner takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't deceive her. You didn't betray her. You simply failed to satisfy the invisible character she hired you to play, an imaginary role she never disclosed, even to herself. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Jung few places prove that truth more starkly than romantic relationships. Lovers enter as walking projections, hauling unlived fears, unmet needs, and old childhood wounds into the arms of someone they barely know. You call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a hypnotized traveler, you wander into the same trap, thinking, this time will be different. It never is, because you still haven't asked the most frightening question a man can face. What if I am the one keeping this pattern alive? It's easier to blame women, to label them manipulative, deceptive, shallow. But Jung would stare straight through you and ask, why did you allow yourself to be chosen by her in the first place? A man who refuses to explore his own inner feminine, his anima, will forever be enslaved by hers. You're not a victim. You're a volunteer. You chose the fool's role. because confronting your own emptiness felt more terrifying than acting in someone else's dream. And here is where many men tune out, because this is where the comfort ends and responsibility begins. Jung offered no quick fixes, no three-step alpha program. He handed you a brutal lifelong assignment, self-confrontation. Sit alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions fracture, until that voice insisting you're worthless without her finally begins to die. Make no mistake, that voice will fight to survive. It will tell you need her, that you're incomplete without feminine validation. But Jung's legacy whispers something far more dangerous. The man who can stand without her, without approval, applause, or the need to be needed, is the man who is finally free from projection, free from performance, free from the silent tyranny of living as someone else's idea of what a man should be. And when you arrive at that place, when you've stopped performing, you don't become cold, detached, or indifferent. You become real, rooted, grounded, alive, in your own skin. And paradoxically, that's when women are most drawn to you. Not because you need them, but because you don't. And when they come, you'll smile, not out of arrogance, not from bitterness, but from understanding. You finally see she's on her own journey too. She must confront her animus, awaken from her own illusions. And no matter how much you care, you can't do that work for her. You can't rescue her from her. All you can do is what Jung did. Walk your own path, with such clarity, such conviction, that you become a living mirror, a reflection of truth for anyone brave enough to look. Most will turn away, but a rare few will thank you for it. And that is the difference between being loved for the role you perform and being respected for the man you have become. And when that realization fully settles in, when you no longer have to perform, something strange happens. People around you become uncomfortable. They sense it, even if they can't name it. Your presence unsettles them. Why? Because you no longer fit into their tidy categories. You don't play the roles that make them feel safe. Jung warned of this. The individuated man, the man who has awakened, is rarely welcomed. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled as aloof, arrogant, emotionally unavailable. But the truth is far more threatening. You are now untouchable, unbought, unmanipulable, because you see through the game. And here's where the irony deepens. The very people who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval, now resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still entranced by the myth of the perfect man, will accuse you of being too distant, too cold, too analytical. But what they really mean is, they can no longer control you. You've stepped off their stage. You've stopped reciting their script. And without that script, they no longer know how to relate to you, because you're no longer a character. You've become a man. Jung once remarked that the gods have become diseases, that what ancient cultures once called divine possession, modern psychology now calls neurosis. And make no mistake, men chasing validation are the most spiritually unwell of all. You think it's romantic to say, I'd do anything for her. She's my everything. But Jung would shake his head. What you call love is actually a refusal to carry your own soul. It's easier to project it onto a woman, easier to make her the carrier of your hope, your purpose, your meaning. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. Not as a man she needs to fix her, fill her, or rescue her, but as a man she chooses to walk besides. Precisely because he doesn't need her. And in that moment you'll feel something rare. Not the high of infatuation, not the thrill of conquest, but peace. Deep, grounded, unmistakable peace. Because you'll realize she is not your salvation. She is not your purpose. She is not your soul. She is simply a mirror, reflecting the wholeness you've fought like hell to reclaim within yourself. And she'll see you the same way. Not as a fantasy, not as a savior, not as a script to project upon, but as a man who has made the descent into his own depths and returned not broken but reborn. Jung would call this the sacred union, not of man and woman but of conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, shadow and self. It's not a honeymoon, it's not a fairy tale. It's work, shared, honored, mutual work. And it begins only when both have stopped pretending. So here is your invitation, not from her but from your own soul. Stop chasing, start becoming. Because until you do, you will keep living the same story. A man begging to be chosen, while never once choosing himself. And the truth is, you were never meant to be chosen. You were meant to awaken. And from that awakening, everything changes. No longer seduced by illusions. No longer enslaved by performance. No longer waiting for permission to be a man. Because you already are. You always were. You just forgot. And now, it's time to remember. Individuation is not for the faint-hearted. It demands the death of false identities. The masks we wear to gain love, approval or validation. Jung called this dying before you die. A complete dismantling of the persona. Projection creates illusion, not love. Men and women alike project unmet needs and inner wounds onto each other. What we often call love is merely mutual fantasy. Jung warned, projection is theft. It replaces truth with illusion. You are the mirror, not the problem. When you stop performing and start reflecting the truth, people will often resent you, because you're no longer playing the character they created. Romantic betrayal is often psychological, not personal. She didn't betray you, she simply dropped the fantasy. And you feel betrayed not because she changed, but because you failed to live up to an illusion you never agreed to carry. You are not a victim, you're a volunteer. Jung would ask, why did you allow yourself to be chosen by that woman? If you constantly attract the same pattern, it's time to confront your own unconscious feminine and unmet emotional need. The animus and anima must be integrated. A woman who doesn't confront her animus will project it onto men, just as a man who avoids his anima will chase women who embody what he refuses to meet in himself. The result, mutual fantasy, not partnership. The man who doesn't need her is finally free. Free from chasing, free from performing, free from needing to be needed. This isn't emotional detachment. It's emotional sovereignty. This kind of man disturbs the world, because he can't be bought, manipulated, or seduced by fantasy. His presence reveals how much others are still pretending. When you do meet a whole woman, she won't demand performance. She won't see you as her savior or her missing half. She'll walk beside you, not beneath you, not above you. No masks, no myths, just real. Jung didn't offer a map. He left a challenge. He didn't give easy answers. He called for courage, inner work, and uncompromising truth. Stop waiting to be chosen. Stop blaming women. Choose your final words. The man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. This is the man who becomes the author of his own life. And the invitation is clear. Don't scroll past. Don't consume and forget. Start the work. This isn't just a motivational video. It's a summons to initiation. The question is, will you answer it?